Hello, FleetReadyFam. Welcome to FleetReadyGaming. My name is Savad. Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a slightly different video than our usual since there hasn't been much news coming out from CIG today, and we just had 3.18.1 launch, so we're probably not going to have another patch until at least later tonight or tomorrow for the PTU 3.18.2. So I thought in the meantime, let's go over some things on the roadmap that we can expect to be wrapping up and hopefully coming to us here in the next month or two. So today we're going to check out things that will be coming out in the month of May and June and talk about each one on the progress tracker. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so starting off, we have Actor Status Tier 2. 14 weeks to be done and is coming up for both Squadron 42 and Star Citizen, so we may not see this initially in the PU as it is, CIG's mantra, Squadron first, PU second, but the Actor Status Tier 2 looks at a variety of new elements such as hygiene, NPC status tracking, multiple bytes, DNA integrity, medical insurance, cybernetic limbs, and cloning. So this one is interesting because it covers a lot of stuff that we've been really wanting to hear more about from CIG for quite some time. Certain things they've teased over the last year, such as the cybernetic limbs. We had it's either an Inside Star Citizen or Star Citizen Live that covered the concept art of cybernetics on characters and how they would look like. Hopefully in the coming weeks we'll see an update on how that's been and what they'll look like in game and not just as two-dimensional drawings. Something very exciting to consider. But things like hygiene has been something that's heavily talked about. That has been discussed in great detail by the community of gosh, is this something I'm going to have to do? Am I going to actually have to make sure my character is bathed? How much of an impact is it really going to have? Will my character, do I really have to use the bathroom, or is my character going to take a shit in its suit? And how that's, how much of an impact is that going to play with the NPC populace around us, and will it have any sort of effect on players around, if we have, different effects of like with our consumables, like with food and drink that are like hyperbolic and metabolic and things like that that make us hungrier and thirstier quicker or not and whatnot. Will having a player near us or ourselves who are not smelling or up to social standards, is that going to affect our neighbors? It's very interesting. Then we have NPC status tracking. I'm curious what this is kind of entailing. Is this more bounty hunter, with the going in tandem with the bounty hunter V2? I'm curious about that. And then multiple bites. Like, I'm curious if it means like scarring, like if we're bit by a creature or slashed, by something. That one's another interesting one that I'm curious what the verbiage actually means. Then we have DNA integrity. This I assume goes in with cloning. I assume, they've said things in the past that, going in specific like gas clouds or environments can have an effect not only on our weapons and ships armor, and the clothes that we wear, but, it could potentially, I guess, damage our DNA, making it more difficult to get a proper cloning scan before we address getting that fixed. That's my take on it, but I'm curious. Medical insurance, that's going to be very interesting to see. Will we be able to get different levels of insurance? Will it be I'm curious how that will play in because, right now we have the one system that works all right. We go back to where we choose. That'll be interesting. And then again, cybernetics is really cool. And then cloning, I assume it ties into a lot of these other things. And it may be tying in further with the death of a spaceman mechanics. And, will we have our certain amount of lives before we have to recreate our character and continue on? So that is Actor Status Tier 2 coming out, or at least wrapping up at the end of June. Moving on. Also ending at the end of June, we have additional derelict settlements. 26 weeks worth of work, settlements with both gameplay and social elements spread throughout the Stanton Wilderness using the Rastar tool. So, this is more of the same that we already have. Most of these settlements that we've been getting, have been definitely interesting. We only have a couple that are, I personally feel are really, stand out, which would be like the Reclaimer Derelict or the MSR 600i one. So hopefully we'll get more of those very unique settlements that really add up that spice of like, something happened here and people have moved in and or gangs have moved in and are using it to, be their hideout. But moving on, next one, and this one's going to be an interesting one. We have aerodynamic control surfaces, 39 weeks worth of work ending in mid-May. So not much further for this one to be finished, and we may even see it introduced with 319 and Invictus Fleet Week. Ships with control surfaces will be able to use them in atmosphere to aid their maneuverability. This will allow for improved performance from ships that have weak maneuvering thrusters in atmosphere and bring new depth to aerodynamic flight in the game. Now, this is going to be very interesting for every ship in the game. I'm curious how much, more, lack for a better word, brick ships are going to fly, because they rely a lot more on their thrusters versus then wings and whatnot for such as like fighters and whatnot. It'll be fun to see how much more maneuverable and just tactile, I guess you could say, a lot more of the lighter and much more atmospheric friendly ships are going to be. Moving on. Next one doesn't come up for a little while. All right. Asteroid facilities. This one I'm excited about. Adding new asteroid facilities to the persistent universe. Handcrafted, traversable areas offering different gameplay opportunities both in the interior and exterior of asteroids. So essentially it's Grim Hexes across, Stanton and beyond. Whether if they will be, I'm curious what their sizes will range. Could they just be like a cargo, a big warehouse, or will they be full on like cities like we see with, well, not so much cities, but you get my gist. Full on locations like Grim Hex. I'm sure they'll have derelict ones. I'm sure there'll be ones that are populated. But it definitely is interesting and offers a lot more gameplay, possibilities. Maybe we could even get like a jump town in space, which would be cool. Imagine trying to hold off a asteroid facility and having to worry about, opponents coming from any and all directions versus just from above or across the terrain. So fascinating stuff. By the way, let me know what you guys think about each of these down in the comment section below. Would love to talk to you about it. Always fun talking to you guys. All right, moving on. Next, we have the Crusader Spirit. I'm super excited for this smaller Crusader vessels series of ships. As mentioned before, I have the Spirit E1, the VIP transport. I will probably be picking up the bomber as well at some point. Excuse me. But an awesome trio of ships. Going to be fun. Do you guys own any of them? Are they ones that you're excited for? But 50 weeks worth of work, finishing up in June, mid-June it looks like. Yeah, exciting stuff. New ships are always fun. Cutting Tier 2, 40 weeks worth of work and finishing towards the end of June. All back-end tech tasks related to updating the cutting feature for the multi-tool that will be used in future locations and mission updates. The continued development of the existing multi-tool technology will allow players to cut through specific objects. This will primarily include the ability to free-form cut on specific surfaces. So I assume that we will be using this as part of salvage as well. I mean, in ISCs and Star Citizen lives, they've teased and showed. Even Citizen Cons have showcased what they want to do with this, with getting into like vents and or opening up, cutting out components and things like that. But I'm curious if we'll be able to use these to help further board ships or even cut holes through through the holes of ships or thin areas that we know, maybe like a window, and be able to get in that way. But it'll be exciting to see the updates with that. Next one, this is one we covered before in a different video. Disarray ammunition, 5 weeks worth of work finishing at the end of June. This new charged ballistic projectile that emits electromagnetic pulses, helping to not only damage the target but also disrupt power systems. So this will be the ballistic style of Distortion, which will also cause damage, unlike Distortion, but also help disable your targets. And then we have Distortion propagation, also ending in June. 29 weeks worth of work, further work on this damage type to allow correct propagation into systems. This makes the location of impact much more important, as powered items closer to the impact will begin to suffer more severely. This will fulfill the original vision we had for Distortion weapons we already have in game and those we have planned for the future. I'm excited about the ones they have in the future. I know that with the new soft death mechanics, and then on top of it, just in general, the cargo refactor, a lot of our pirate friends and enemies are definitely enjoying being able to use their tools, and bounty hunters too, but enjoying using the tools that were already given to us and have them work efficiently and being able to efficiently get their targets. Moving on, next one, Flack ammunition, finishing at the very tail end of May and into the beginning of June, possibly. With 45 weeks of work, this new damage type triggers on proximity or expiration, causing a concentrated burst of shrapnel to damage targets in an area. Pretty straightforward, and will be exciting to see how that affects gameplay. Next, we have Incendiary ammunition, finishing in June. 5 weeks worth of work. This new ballistic projectile that burns on impact, causing the target to take damage over time and potentially causing items in the environment to catch fire. With what we've seen with the Star Citizen, Inside Star Citizen, we had about a month and a half ago now, where they showed the flamethrower and it was a fake flamethrower, but regardless, as well as the fire extinguisher and the tech demos we've seen in the past with the fire propagation. That's going to be exciting stuff, and definitely one of those things I'm excited for multi-crew gameplay mechanic wise. Next, we have MFD rework, finishing towards the end of June. With 125 weeks worth of work, we will both rebuild ship MFDs with our new building blocks UI technology, as well as completely redesign them in an effort to make them more customizable, better matched to ship aesthetics, and better at serving ship gameplay. This one is definitely one we have desperately been needing across the majority of ships. I mean, the fact that MFDs don't save when you get out of your ship and then come back, or you stow it and come, pull it back out. It has been a gripe for many people for a long time. Um, Finally, glad to see that this is finally coming towards an end, and I hope that we get it sooner than later, because, it is shown here to be both Squadron and Star Citizen related. So hopefully we will actually get it in our hands here sooner. Moving on. New interdiction scenarios, 53 weeks worth of work ending in June, adding new variations and difficulty levels of interdiction scenarios that players will come across while quantum traveling. Now, it's been interesting because I've already, when I play, I don't get interdicted all that much. But when 318 dropped, I have actually been getting interdicted more than I have in probably the past, like, gosh, 2 or 3 years. It's been quite some time. And I know that it's different for everyone. I know some people get interdicted a lot more. It's weird how their algorithm works for that. But it will be interesting to see what this new variation is and difficulties, and, whether or not that will mean larger groups of ships that are in waiting versus, smaller parties. I mean, I'm sure it will be much like with the, what are they called? The change that they did for the alerts, ECNs? I forget what the term is, but the missions that you can take that are now, essentially easy to hard, and the hardest critical ones are like you're fighting an Idris and 2 hammerheads. It'll be interesting to see how that scales. Moving on, we have Outpost Homestead, Independent and Outlaw. 130 weeks worth of work finishing in June. Excuse me. A small home for AI to live and shelter. They consist of a central hub and a few optional internal and external modules. They provide the basic necessities to support a small group of people for an indefinite amount of time. Now, with this being said, the most of this we have seen being towards Pyro. And they have talked a bit about getting these into Stanton as well. And I'm hoping with this work done, that means for Stanton as well. It would be awesome to see, scattered across the verse, being able to go down and find an actual settlement that may be, marked, maybe not, that you could go down, get a bite to eat, refuel your ship if they have the facilities, and or just, do a mission, drop off a box, maybe pick up something, and be able to explore a bit, or just go on a murder hobo rampage and try to steal all the stuff. But that's exciting. I hope that we see that in game here soon. Next, we have plasma ammunition. 5 weeks to do, ending in June. Further work on this damage type will cause damage over time to actors, vehicles, and ships. Larger weapons of this type will also leave behind a hazard, causing further damage to anything in close proximity. This will fulfill the original vision we had for plasma weapons we already have in game, and those we have planned for the future. All right, we're going to just move on because we have a whole video based on the ammunition types that we talked about. Go check it out if you want to learn more about that and add to that discussion. Now, this next one is an interesting one. Seeded item handling. 20 weeks worth of work ending mid-May. This feature will add the ability for players and NPCs to use items or smaller weapons while seated in the passenger seat of a vehicle or ship. Now, this is going to be something that's extremely helpful, and especially for sitting in the passenger seat of a ship. The whole fact that if you're in a seat and you're dealing with something and you're boarded, or someone sneaks onto your ship and you have to get out of your ship, pull out your gun, and then deal with it. I mean, if they're already there and ready, most people know you're dead, you're screwed. But now this gives us an ability to be able to hopefully turn around, lean over our seat, which, by the way, CIG, if you're watching this, please make seats somewhat bulletproof, or at least have the ability to soak up some bullets before we get blasted. But I digress. It allows us to be able to fight back while still being seated. Awesome stuff. And then also for those in vehicles like the cyclones and whatnot, being able to additionally give support, which is really cool. All right, moving on. Next, we have sliding, ending in June, 14 weeks worth of work. This feature will introduce a new traversal method for players, allowing them to traverse short distances by sliding along the floor. This will add a new element to combat situations. So, with this, there's been a lot of jokes that, Star Citizen is turning into Apex, but this will definitely be a nice feature added, especially when trying to get into cover and making yourself as small as possible while trying to move quickly. Very excited for that. Can't wait to see it. Again, slated for Squadron and Star Citizen, so not sure if we'll be getting this first. But regardless, I'm excited to see that it's nearing completion, hopefully. Again, with all of these, we're not sure if they're fully done, but the work being done so far is up to where they need it to be. Next, we have Swimming Tier 0. 14 weeks worth of work, creating basic functionality for the player to be able to swim across the surface of bodies of water, including related features such as entering, exiting, and drowning. Include support for hazardous liquids that can damage or kill the players and other characters. So this will be wonderful to have. Right now when you go into water, so long as you're wearing a suit, you can just walk on the ground. Gravity still affects you. Unlike ships, which will just explode if they're in too deep of water. But being able to swim will be wonderful. And, being able to dive underwater too, if you're in a gunfight, will be very helpful too. And I hope that CIG makes sure that bullet mechanics work better when shooting into water and bullets don't act normally, because otherwise people are just going to get slaughtered. But yeah. And then I think we have one more. Yes, we have actually two more. Vehicle tractor beams ending in June. 90 weeks to implement. Implementing tractor beams attached to ships, either remote operated or a turret-like attachment. This allows players to move and tow bigger objects, including other ships. Now, CIG has been teasing this of late, so we have a good idea of what to expect. Being able to take components out of ships, whether that be weapons or missiles, components, and whatnot, and being able to interact with things. Even being able to, like it said, to tow ships, pick up ships, whether it be, the tractor beam rifle that we're getting to the actual vehicle tractor beams like this one is talking about. It will open up a lot more gameplay opportunities, which is exciting to see. And then finally, we have Weapon, Misfire, and Wear, ending in June with 90 weeks worth of work, adding the potential for certain weapons to misfire or malfunction depending on various factors. Now, this one is interesting because, we already have Wear on our ships and whatnot, and we technically do have some misfires, not as many as that they've shown recently that they'd like to introduce with the engineering gameplay for ships. But misfire for weapons is a very interesting one. I'm curious what the factors are that they're talking about, because imagine if you've had your weapon for, let's say, for a few weeks, you've been, you haven't died, it's gone through you and through so many battles, and it's finally starting to wear down. Is there a chance that it could, shoot while holstered or on your back? Obviously, I think the idea is that it can misfire while you're just holding it in the action ready to attack, type of scenario, but it'll be interesting, make sure you're not pointing your gun at anyone you don't want to accidentally shoot. But I believe that is it. Yep, that is. So, A lot of interesting stuff coming out. Let me know what you're most excited to see that we covered today that's coming in the next 2.5 months. Some very fun stuff. But with that being said, we're going to end the video here. Thank you again so much for watching. If you haven't already liked the video, give it a thumbs up. It really helps us out. And if you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It would mean a lot to us, and we're looking to grow our channel. And once we hit 100 subscribers, we're going to be doing a giveaway contest with our LTI vessel already secured. More info on that later as we get closer. But I hope you guys have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.